They all went to Sandhurst. All of the Arab tyrannical leaders. So these people, like Gamal Abdel Nasser and others, they returned back fully trained and to head a new socialist government. Believing that a new era would come for the Islamic Revolution, the Muslim Brotherhood, containing both Salafi and Sunni sections within it, worked with the Free Officers. However, once in power, the Free Officers turned and arrested the Brotherhood members and eventually assassinated the Supreme Guide, Hassan al-Banna. Hassan al-Banna is the son of the great faqih of the past age, Imam Hassan as-Sa'ati, the great hadith scholar. Hassan al-Banna, in his early youth, he never had any issues with his theology. He was a very basic believer in terms of being a school teacher, but he was politically motivated on trying to change the conditions with the Egyptian people. But as the Muslim Brotherhood, Ikhwan al-Muslimin, grew, it absorbed within it criminal elements, Orthodox Muslims, Salafis. And within one of those chapters of the Ikhwan al-Muslimin was a young Sayyid Qutb, brought into the movement. And he was influenced by Sayyid Abu al-Ala Mawdudi, who was influenced by Mas'ud Alam, who was influenced by Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan, the grandson of Muhammad Abdul Wahab. See the link? Nothing's by accident. Everything's connected. You can find this in your own research. Arab nationalism was dealt a horrible and devastating blow when they were defeated by the State of Israel in wars taking place in the years 1365, 1375, 1385, where Egypt lost a quarter of its land, Jordan lost Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Syria lost the Golan Heights. And there was also the War of 1391. After 1385, the Arab Union dissolved, because the whole point of the Arab Union was to make this super race state, because everyone was all nationalistic at this time. We are Colombians, we are Egyptians. And so the Arab Union was made. And so you'll notice the flags of Syria, Iraq, Egypt, they're all that same color, that black, white, and red, because they used to be part of the Arab Union. And you get your head kicked in so many times on the battlefield, you realize, you know what, this Arab Union thing doesn't work. Because every time they entered into battle with the State of Israel, they lost, and I mean miserably. In the war that took place in 1375, the Israeli Air Force wiped out the entire Egyptian Air Force before it even got off the ground. 10 minutes, they wiped it out. They beat them in 6 days. That was called the 6-Day War. They beat them in 6 days. They made it look easy. Surrounded by 120 million Arabs, and you can't remove 300,000. There's more Jewish people in Williamsburg and Brooklyn than the State of Israel, and you can't beat them. And the children of Israel and the State of Israel are saying, you know, what can we say? We just make it look easy. It was suave to be a Jew at that point, because look at these guys, you know, they're bad. You know, the Arabs can't mess with them, and they've got the oil and the guns. And the Soviet Union, and the Jews are just a little plucky Jewish guy. He's got his yarmulke, he's got his yarmulke and his Kalashnikov, and you can't lick him. And this is how it was viewed. It was a horrible time for the Arabs, where the Arabs, it was a bad time to be Arabs. They used to go by, even in the 70s, they used to go by, put bricks through your window. And it used to have written on the bricks, "Love the Jews." Mother tells me stories of bricks being put in through the front window, car being blown up. Right? Because there was this new understanding that the Arabs, they didn't have the power, they were weak. From 1367 to 1369, this time period handed the United States its first military defeat when trying to colonize the Korean Peninsula and fight a proxy war with the Soviet Union to stop the spread of communism in Southeast Asia. One of the things that the US and the Soviet Union focused on doing was fighting what are called proxy wars. And I'll break this down to you in a simple way. If you've ever seen at school, and you have, there's been the kid that's generally the weakest. But because of either money or he's popular, he hides behind the bigger, dumber bully who does his work for him. And he fights proxy wars for the little guy. And so often when the big guy, the brutal guy, comes to see you and to beat you up, it's in proxy of the little guy that has sent him. That's the proxy. Because he may have made an agreement where he said, no, we're friends. I'm your friend. I love you. But in actuality, there's something else going on behind the scenes. And this is what happened with proxy wars between the US and the Soviet Union. So sometimes governments would get overthrown by mercenaries or the CIA or other forces. And these were these proxy wars. But the Koreans very intelligently decided, we're just going to fight the United States flat out, because the soldiers said, we're coming offering you help during this police action. And the first thing they did was start shooting US soldiers, because they knew you are actually behind this proxy war. And they started killing them. And this was the first time the US had been handed a decisive military defeat by the Korean people. They left Korea with the tail between their legs, and the Korean peninsula divided between the North Koreans, which were the Koreans that won the war, and the South Koreans, those that had stayed behind and had turned traitor and were protected by the United States. 3 unsuccessful attempts had been made on Gamal Abdel Nasser's life from the years 1369 to 1372, but none succeeded. The Brotherhood was soon taken over by more Salafi influences such as Sayyid Qutb. He wrote his book Signposts, which was popularly translated into English. I don't know who translated it. They should go to jail. But someone translated that, I use the word information advisedly, into English. And it went all over the U.S. campuses where Muslims are at. It's here. Go into your local ISOC, go into the library, you'll find a copy of 2 books. Well, 3. Kitab al-Tawheed by Muhammad Abdul Wahab, the Tafheem al-Qur'an by Maududi, and Signposts by Sayyid Qutb. Go visit your local Muslim ISOC. If you don't find it in there, someone will know where to get you a copy, and they'll be glad that you asked, because they will be part of that organization that will teach you that information. Now, Sayyid Qutb came from the same theological influence as Muhammad Hamid Fiqhi, who had influenced Mas'ud Alam, who had influenced Abu al-Ala Maududi, right? And this person, Muhammad Hamid Fiqhi, had the same influence from Abdul Rahman ibn Hassan, the grandson of Muhammad Abdul Wahab. He's the one that gave Sayyid Qutb the doctrine of Al-Hakimiyyah, mentioned in Tafheem al-Qur'an. You might have heard in the late 90s this battle between some of the Salafis over, is Tawheed al-Hakimiyyah a 4th Tawheed? There was a battle over 3 Tawheeds. No, there are 3 Tawheeds. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, and Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat. But then all of a sudden someone came with a new, this Tawheed al-Hakimiyyah. Allah is the only lawgiver. Well, that fits under Allah's Rububiyyah. No, it doesn't. It's separate. No, it fits under his uluhiyyah because it's part of his worship. No, his hakimiyyah is separate. And because you deny his hakimiyyah, you're kuffar. So now there were Salafis battling over the use of 2 expressions, Tawheed and Hakimiyyah. And none of them were authentically representing Tawheed. But this is what was happening. The Battle of Hakimiyyah. 1374 AH came with Muhammad Musaddiq. He was chosen by the people of Iran to be their leader. But the CIA, in a black operation, what they call Black Ops, overthrew him using Iranian proxy agents called the Savak, which is the CIA of Iran. They removed him from power. Joseph Vladimir Stalin, who had studied to be a priest and was the son of a Georgian shoemaker, died in this same year of 1374. He'd been responsible for the death of 86 million people, 36 million of them being Muslims. So this guy had a problem with Muslims. 36 million to count. Yeah, there were problems with 86 million, but specifically 36 million. If you really want to see what this gentleman, I use the word advisedly, thinks of Muslims, there's a really good book about this thick. It's about as thick as my fist. It's a collector's item. It's called Joseph Stalin's Selected Works. Oh, that book is brimming with socialist anecdotes and what we need to do with the Chechen question. The Chechen question. What is the Chechen question? We've got to solve the Chechen question. Wait a minute, there's Muslims that live in Chechnya. Yes, our policy must be one of extermination. Chechen question. That's the Muslim question. Yes. Wipe them out. Because at the end of it, all they are is how are they referred to? All they are is illegal Turkish migrants in Russia because they have Turkish blood. Illegal Turkish migrants in Russia shouldn't be there. And now think about the Chechnya Turkish issue. It goes back all the way to there. Perhaps 100 years. We're thinking, oh, some breakaway republic. It wasn't a breakaway republic. It never considered itself part of the Soviet Union. How can it be a breakaway republic? Where they're charging you a fine to have a beard. Fining women for wearing hijab. You want to wear hijab? Great. Only $39.99 a month. Charging you like a TV license. But this is what was happening to the Muslims. You think you're oppressed now. In this country, oh, this is Islamophobia. No, Islamophobia, you come outside and your car's turned over and on fire. That's Islamophobia. You say, we're going to charge you a beard tax. But some of us wouldn't have to worry about that because they won't grow it even if they can. But the hijab tax is more severe. Because a lot of the sisters would just have to say, well, I'll just have to take the fine and just brave it and wear it. So this is what was going on during that time. Also, Fidel Castro overthrew the United States puppet regime and race-based economy in his home country of Cuba. And a new era began for the Cuban people. Right? They had a communist country off the coast of Florida. That scared the Americans like nobody's business. There were over 13 failed invasions where the Cubans won. Over 400 presidential directives to try to kill Fidel Castro that all failed. 400 directives, including an exploding cigar. None of them worked. They even sent his own daughter to try to kill this man. But it failed. And there's Castro today. Happy and jolly in his 80s. Still doing pull-ups every morning on his bar, on his pull-up bar. And healthier than the average 25-year-old in America with a 95% literacy rate. The Americans are at 78. AIDS quarantined like how polio's quarantined here. You do the math. The concept of a teenager is invented to create a demographic for designers and advertisers to target. We need to make new sales. We need to target a new group. Let's call them teenagers. So you've got between 13 and 19 teenagers. Now you've got tweenies. So they've got the tweenie magazines. That's that interim period before teenagers. We've got that demographic too. So now we've got young children in which they're infants. Can't sell them anything, too small, still drooling on themselves. Then we've got toddlers. They can start to look at bright colors. So if you look at the cartoon characters, they've always got big eyes, really bright colors. That's for your kids. Dad, I want that. Why? I want that. And they cry if they don't get it because it's been designed to catch the attention of your children. It's just brainwashing. Then you get to the tweenie stage, all the magazines. Who likes who? Does Bert love Joanne? Tweenies. And it's introducing them to this soft porn. So you see on the cover of the magazine, the girls with the low-cut top. There's nothing to even support the low-cut top, but it's of what's to come. And then in the teenage years, then you introduce the hardcore of pornography, the Hustler and Playboy and all these magazines, men's entertainment, as they call them. Garbage. But it invented the title of teenager. And it invented this group. So now you have a group of people, some people, if they allow this to happen, they say, oh, my children are teenagers. And they fall into this whole game. Where in actuality, people were held to be adults at 15, and they were taught everything before that time so they could stand on their own feet when they were adults at 15. But now they're taught, no, you're teenagers. You're hormonal. You're going through, and they've got all types of programs that target teenage audiences. Clothing that targets teenage audiences. You look and you see a pair of jogging pants in a department store that have written across the crotch or the back, juicy. This is targeting teenage girls between the ages of 13 and 19. Say, well, what can we do? That's the style right now.